interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Month.
Whole month of Courage, the Cowardly Dog. First appearing in 1996, it was picked up by Cartoon Network, who work in the middle of Burbank, and directed by cartoonist John Dilworth. Though many years have passed since the original air date, it's now time for Zack to celebrate this great show.
Well, old sport, what do you think? Neat. Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to Courage Month. So today's episodes we're going to be reviewing are Last of the Starmakers and Son of the Chicken from Outer Space. So let's get into both of those. Okay, so this episode, Last of the Starmakers, is about how stars are made, or at least in the context of Courage the Cowardly Dog, it explains how they're made. This episode is just kind of, as you can probably tell from the title, this episode is about an endangered species of creature that creates stars in the sky. Long story short, Courage has to make sure that they can actually continue to exist afterward. So the episode opens up by introducing us to the Starmakers, which are giant squids. And the female star maker, the purple one, actually has several eggs that they need to go lay down and hatch. But as they're about to do that, they're actually attacked by a giant space whale who tries to eat both of them. And the male Star Maker tries to cling on to the female Star Maker to actually keep her and her baby safe. And tries to pull them to safety, but when that fails, he winds up going into the jaws of the space whale itself and actually sacrificing himself so that the mother could actually escape with the babies. And then he winds up turning into the stars in the sky and perishes that way, so that the whale doesn't actually eat him. While the female Star Maker actually sheds a tear for her fallen husband and actually winds up crash landing on Earth. Around this point, Courage has actually woken up and is actually in the process of bringing Eustace his morning newspaper. He sticks the newspaper in his mouth, and then the Star Maker crash lands on the Earth and lands just outside the Bagge farmhouse. Courage doesn't fully understand that the Star Maker isn't dangerous. So he immediately runs inside to tell Eustace and Muriel what's going on. He starts with Eustace since he has his newspaper, but Eustace not only just ignores Courage, but he just takes the newspaper and beats him with it. With Muriel merely telling Eustace to leave him alone. At which point Courage figures he'd have better luck telling Muriel about it. So he tells her what he saw, or at least tries to, and then proceeds to bring her outside to actually show her. And while initially she's a little skeptical about us, she doesn't fully understand what Courage is trying to show her. Eventually, she does see the Star Maker lying on the ground, and proceeds to actually go up and actually figure out what it is she is. And she accurately guesses that it's some sort of giant squid. Upon trying to talk up the giant squid and ask her where she's come from, the Star Maker actually puts her babies in the ground and starts laying on top of them so that they'll hatch. Muriel only really understands that it's the miracle of birth. She doesn't understand that the Star Maker actually makes stars, and Courage is still a little skeptical about what the Star Maker actually is because he doesn't know where it came from or what it is. It's just that it came from space. And the Star Maker does indeed answer Muriel's question about where she came from, pointing out that she's not from Earth. And Muriel accurately deduces that she must be from space, and decides that they should actually kind of protect their new guest, since obviously she's come there to actually hatch her babies, and that is a very priceless moment. Eustace, meanwhile, has come outside after finding out what all the commotion was, and upon hearing that the whole experience was priceless, he decides to go in and make a couple of calls. So, and at which point Muriel decides to go inside and make some snacks, and in the meantime tells Courage to actually keep the Star Maker company, much to Courage's chagrin, since initially he doesn't fully understand what the Star Maker is, and he's still a little terrified of it. But then the Star Maker, as a peace offering, offers him a star. And which calms Courage down, and he realizes that the Star Maker isn't actually dangerous. At which point Muriel comes back outside and once again asks the Star Maker what kind of thing what she is and why she came to Earth. and at which point the Star Maker proceeds to kind of explain her backstory a little bit, and also points out, and also Courage shows Muriel the star, and she and the Star Maker then proceeds to explain that she was the one who made the star for Courage, and eventually after a bit of explanation from the Star Maker, Muriel realizes what she finally is, and realizes that the Star Maker is actually responsible for the stars in the sky. Which she remarks is a very beautiful thing and a very admirable pastime for her, since that's how the stars in the sky are actually made. But then the government shows up. And it's revealed that Eustace was the one who actually called them and told them about the giant squid in his yard. And as promised, the general actually hands him a bag of $1 million, and Eustace goes inside happy that he's finally rich. Meanwhile, the general decides to actually set up shop there, and actually decides that they're actually going to be running experiments on the space squid to actually figure out how it works. So they set up their lab right then and there on the government property, and well, not on government property, but they set up their government lab right on the Bagge property, and proceed to try and bring the squid in for testing. But Muriel actually intervenes, saying that the Star Maker is just a mother looking after her babies, and that if they want the Star Maker, they're gonna have to go through her. So the general decides to do exactly that and has her arrested. At which point we get to see the government ninjas again, who immediately arrest Muriel and throw her in the back of a truck to keep her from interfering, with Muriel just chanting to free the squid. At which point they pick up the Star Maker in a crane and put her inside the lab, where they then proceed to hook her up to something vital called space squid fluid, which it's not clear what it is. All we know is that it's vital to space squids. But in any case, Courage begins to freak out, and they also put the babies in an incubator. And Courage freaks out from all of this. At which point Muriel calls him over to her cell in the back of the truck, and proceeds to tell him that he needs to actually get the babies back under the mother. Otherwise there'll be no new stars in the sky, and also points out that the government is completely in the wrong here, which is just a recurring thing throughout Courage the Cowardly Dog, and also possibly in real life, depending on where you live and depending on who's actually in office. But yeah, she just put certain politics in my video, Courage the Cowardly Dog, whatever. But in that case, Courage, much to his chagrin, realizes he actually needs to save the Star Makers and actually make sure that they can actually give birth, since obviously the Star Makers are last of her kind. But she explained to Muriel earlier, I didn't bring that up, but the Space Squid does indeed mention that she's the last of her kind. But in any case, Courage then proceeds to sneak in by burrowing through the floor of the lab to actually get to the incubator and opening it up. But then one of the government agents actually shows up and tries to find out if Courage has clearance. So Courage jumps inside the pit of babies, and proceeds to pull out a doll pretending to be a freshly hatched Star Maker, which the government agent then falls for, and then Courage proceeds to knock him out with the puppet. So yeah, the government agent's not particularly smart, but Courage, now that he's dealt with the government agent, proceeds to pick up the Star Makers and actually carries them out of the tent. And then he proceeds to actually figure out how he's actually supposed to get them under the squid, and realizing he can't go through the front door, he actually pretends to be a kid with a lollipop and balloons, which works. He then proceeds to actually climb in through the vital squid fluid tanker, which he figures is actually being pumped under the squid, so it'll likely help. So he proceeds to open the hatch and gets ready to climb in, but also notices that the liquid doesn't seem like it's safe. But then the government agents corner him on top of the tanker, and he realizes he's better off taking his chances and just jumps in. And then proceeds to go down the hose alongside the babies. With the government scientists, who we actually meet for the first time in this episode, they notice that Courage is trying to sneak up underneath the space squid, and stop him from doing so by just stepping on the hose, and it blows up with Courage in it. And Courage and the babies actually wind up going in every which direction, but Courage quickly scoops them all up while running from the government scientists, and eventually manages to slip up underneath the Star Maker and urges the babies to actually hatch, so that they can actually reproduce and continue the cycle of making new stars. And the government scientists are about to close in on Courage because he's currently just hiding underneath the space squid. But in any case, the Star Maker actually intervenes by picking up the government scientists so that her babies can hatch. And it works. They actually do wind up hatching and actually wind up going out the hatch in the ceiling, which winds up breaking the tent, and it actually winds up collapsing in the process because the air holding it up is now no longer holding it up, which causes the Starmakers then proceed to return into the stars in the sky, and with his mission done, Courage then proceeds to return to Muriel, and Muriel merely remarks that the stars in the sky, that the new stars are so pretty. And also that they actually make a one last constellation of the squids to commemorate what happened to them, and that they've never forgotten the kindness that Courage has shown them. Meanwhile, the Star Maker, the female one, the one that we've been following throughout the episode, she actually does, now that she's actually free from the tent and is also withering away because she's at the end of her life and was mortally wounded, proceeds to actually drag herself outside the tent and turns into a garden. With Muriel remarking that that's the beautiful nature of life. She created the stars in the sky, and now she creates the flowers down below. At which point the general shows up because he actually left and came back. He remarks that he's actually been promoted to the Department of Cover-Ups and tells Muriel and Courage that as long as they keep their secret, they're free to go. So Muriel merely remarks that their lying will be their little secret, which the general solemnly nods to and proceeds to let her out of the jail cell by revealing that it's actually a dump truck and just dumps her out. But in any case, he then explains that now that the government has to cover everything up, he remarks that they actually have one last thing, which is to actually get rid of, which is the money they gave Eustace, and reveals that the money is made out of experimental rocket fuel, and proceeds to launch Eustace into the sky with a push of a button. The last thing we actually see of Eustace is a constellation of him yelling at Courage about him being a stupid dog. So yeah, Eustace winds up being a constellation in the sky, which is very pretty. But this episode is just very beautiful. So this episode just kind of explains, or at least in the context of Courage the Cowardly Dog, where stars come from. Obviously, this isn't how stars are actually made, but it is a very beautiful episode in that there's just a race of creatures that live out in space and make the stars for the universe of Courage the Cowardly Dog to enjoy. And I very much like that concept. It's a very cute and wholesome concept. And obviously, the government intervenes because it's something they don't fully understand. So yeah, I can't really fault them on that because obviously if something weird shows up on your planet, obviously the first thing you would try to do is trying to investigate where it came from. That is just human nature. If something you don't fully understand shows up, you're going to investigate it. That is the nature of human beings. We are inquisitive by nature. I do, however, have to blame Eustace because he was the one who called the government in the first place. And he did wind up getting his just desserts in the end because he wound up being blown up and turned into a constellation. So yeah, he kind of deserved that. But in any case, that's my review of Last of the Starmakers. Onward to the next review. Okay, so this episode, The Son of the Chicken from Outer Space, is actually the final episode of the trilogy of the Space Chicken series of episodes. If you guys remember, I covered the pilot way back at the start of Courage Month. Then sometime season 1 or 2, I think season 1, I covered Revenge of the Chicken from Outer Space, where the space chicken came back. And now this is about his son, who has come to, sons, but I'll get to that in a minute. But it stars his son, who actually comes to get revenge on his dad's behalf. And the episode actually starts off with them in their UFO, and we meet the space chicken's wife. So long story short, the space chicken has a wife who is the mother of the son of the chicken from outer space, and sends them on a quest to actually go and deal with Courage and get revenge on their father's behalf, or as she puts it, either destroy Courage or don't come back. So they wind up going to the Bagge farmhouse to actually get revenge on Courage. Meanwhile, the Bagges are actually painting repainting the chicken coop because according to Muriel, it was time, and Courage is actually trying to take some of the chicken eggs from their nest, but the chickens aren't too happy about it, so Courage just puts it back. But in any case, Eustace and Muriel can't really decide on what color to paint it. Eustace wants to paint it blue, while Muriel wants to paint it pink, and Eustace actually winds up falling off at one point, and his paint bucket actually winds up landing on Courage's head. So Muriel decides that since they can't decide, they should actually let Courage figure it out and determine what color they should actually paint it. So Courage actually doesn't actually decide, because right at this moment the space chicken son actually lands on top of the chicken coop and crushes it flat. So Courage is just barely thrown free from the blast, and but the alien chickens do actually wind up landing on top of the chicken coop, and they then proceed to emerge from the UFO and are revealed to be a group of Siamese triplets. They are actually there's actually only one son, but he has 3 heads, each with their own distinct personalities. And the first one, and then they immediately come out of the UFO, and Courage freaks out because he recognizes them and knows they're probably there over what happened to their dad. So he immediately runs into the house and lets Eustace and Muriel know what's up. Muriel doesn't fully understand what's going on, thinking that Courage had just finished the chicken coop. But as soon as she pops outside, she realizes that the chicken coop has actually been completely destroyed and the chickens are now everywhere. And Eustace actually comes out as well to actually investigate all the racket. So they point out, Eustace actually orders Courage to once again paint the chicken coop. But Muriel points out that the chicken coop is destroyed and there's no point in painting it anymore. So she tells Eustace to go get his tools so they can actually fix it. So Eustace proceeds to go into the basement to actually go and get his tools. Meanwhile, Courage is still trying to figure out where the UFO actually went, since the UFO has since disappeared. But Muriel isn't really worried about any of that, because she doesn't fully understand that the space chicken's son is actually there, since she's just scooping up the chicken so that they can actually get them back in the chicken coop once Eustace actually fixes it. So she asks Courage to actually help her grab some chickens, and Courage is about to, but then it's revealed that one of the chickens she picks up is actually the space chicken's son, who proceeds to open fire on Courage with his laser beam. And he misses multiple times. Courage actually winds up dodging and weaving and a whole bunch of other things, and he winds up hitting a bunch of other things, including their water pump, bucket, and Eustace's legs. So yeah, Eustace actually winds up coming out with his tools just as the space chicken is trying to get his revenge on it for his dad, but he winds up hitting Eustace in the process, and Eustace's legs melt, and Eustace retaliates accordingly by strangling Courage because it's somehow Courage's fault. At which point Muriel tells him just to leave Courage alone and help with the chicken coop while she actually holds on to the chicken. So Eustace tells Courage to get lost. And proceeds to actually go into the process of actually fixing the chicken coop. So later that day, the chicken coop is actually fixed and looks better than new. With Muriel actually being very happy, and also meanwhile the space chicken son has actually gone to recuperate, and we find out that the middle one is actually the dumb one, because he keeps accidentally snapping pictures of him and his brothers by accident, which winds up annoying them, and they wind up slapping him in the face for that. So, but in any case, they do have a plan to actually defeat Courage this time around, while Courage is actually trying to figure out where they went, and also is just admiring the new chicken coop, the space chicken son actually reappears with a Rube Goldberg machine, and it doesn't really matter what the Rube Goldberg machine actually does, because they wind up laying an egg, which winds up going down a chute. It winds up frying it, then they fling it at some dominoes, which lights a lighter that sets off a rocket, which then wakes up a spider, and the spider then proceeds to snare Courage in its web and fling him away, which the space chickens then build a train track on top of him and try to run him over. Which Muriel actually winds up hearing and actually thinks it's tea time, but Courage is desperately trying to free himself from the spiderweb so he can actually get out of the way of the train tracks, but eventually he realizes that there's actually a switcher where the train track on the train track for whatever reason, because apparently and we find that out later, but apparently the middle one was dumb enough to build in a track switcher on the train track when they were trying to kill Courage, and Courage uses it, so they wind up running over the chicken coop with Eustace on top of it. So, and at which point Eustace winds up in a full body cast as a result of that. And Muriel doesn't fully believe what happened to Eustace, pointing out that they actually think he should just watch his temper, and they don't really believe that he got run over by a train. And Courage doesn't really speak up to say that's true, so he just kind of laughs nervously yeah, that definitely didn't happen. But in case there's suddenly a knock at the door, and Courage, realizing that the space chicken son is still very much at large, proceeds to open the door very cautiously and discovers that there's actually a remote control bomb in the shape of an egg chasing after him. So he winds up running through the house to actually get away from it. He actually winds up ducking under Muriel's chair, and into the grandfather clock. But the egg actually follows him into the grandfather clock, so he has to run out of the grandfather clock and winds up running into the bathroom, where it's revealed that the egg has actually appeared in the bathtub somehow, and Courage proceeds to try and flee down the toilet, with the egg actually following him. But Courage winds up climbing out of the pump section of the toilet and actually jumping on it, so it actually gets lodged in the toilet, and proceeds to start flushing it to actually try and put it out. But that doesn't wind up working, and Courage just winds up flooding the bathroom and winds up going out with Eustace actually walking in to actually go and bathe himself or go to the bathroom or whatever, but not important because he winds up being blown up. Courage winds up dodging from the egg, and Eustace winds up getting full blast of the egg explosion, but which does kind of placate the chickens from outer space for the time being. But in any case, they do wind up finally at long last finishing the chicken coop, which they wind up climbing, which Eustace is finally happy to fix. He hasn't quite it isn't quite as good looking as it used to be because the wood is very badly damaged at this point, but for what it is, it works. So Muriel and Courage actually poke their head inside to actually see how nice it actually is, at which point the space chicken's son proceeds to retaliate by bolting them in with a door, which freaks Courage out, and he winds up jumping through the ceiling and landing on top of the space chicken as they're about to do another thing. And he winds up landing on top of them and getting them which causes them to actually hit each other in the head, and they start fighting each other amongst themselves, which Courage kind of just helps and helps instigate it by just giving them a bunch of things to throw at each other, and they just wind up hurting each other in the process and wind up being defeated that way. At which point the three of them start sobbing, and at which point Eustace and Muriel come out and actually see the space chicken see the three-headed space chicken and realize something is wrong. And Muriel actually asks him what's going on, and Courage actually is curious as well as to why the chicken is actually sobbing. And as the space chicken's son reveals, and as he played via a recording of his mother's message to them, they're not allowed to go home until they defeat Courage, and since they failed 4 times now, they obviously are very worried that they're not going to be able to ever return home. So Courage, taking sympathy on them, realizes he actually has a pretty brilliant idea on how to deal with the situation, which is to actually stage a bunch of pictures using the space chicken's camera to actually make it look like he got defeated. And long story short, there's just a couple of visual sight gags there where the chicken is strangling him, turning him into like a baked good, poking his eye out. But long story short, after taking the pictures that they need, the space chicken son and Courage actually part ways as old friends. And have now long since mended their long-standing feud between each other. Now that they're now friends and their father is out of the picture. So with that, they then proceed to get into their UFO and take off, but take one last picture before leaving, which actually winds up having an interesting effect, and I'll get into that. But Muriel merely remarks that she's happy that the three of them that they were actually able to reconcile with the space chicken, and merely remarks that they should really put their heads together more often because 3 heads are better than 1. And then it's revealed that the last thing the space chickens did was actually, I don't know how this works, but their camera apparently transformed Courage, Eustace, and Muriel into one being similar to them, with 3 heads, each representing each of the different characters, and that's how the episode ends. So, yeah, this episode is just an interesting, fun little end to the whole Space Chicken trilogy. So yeah, obviously there was the first episode, so obviously this episode is just 3 episodes worth of build-up that have finally paid off in this episode. Obviously the Space Chicken was the first ever antagonist of the series, and he wound up being defeated. Then he came back as a headless rotisserie chicken and wound up being defeated again. And then the third chicken, then his son came along to get revenge on their father's behalf, but Courage wound up not only defeating them, but also reconciling and making sure that they never come back. So yeah, this is just a fun little end to the trilogy of the episodes, and I do kind of like it. But in any case, that is my review of Courage the Cowardly Dog. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well if you want to help support the show. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks. I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to go check those out in the description below as well. Also, be sure to check out my Twitch because I stream every Sunday, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, and I would very much like for more people to actually know about that and check it out. So just go check that out. Link is down in the description, and just follow me over there because I'm trying to fulfill a milestone for that. And also, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent one. It may or may not be this one, whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. Also, be sure to check out my Discord again because I don't know. I'm going to be doing a watch along over there, and if you guys absolutely want to see that, by all means, go check that out because it is indeed the grand finale of Courage Month. So just be sure to go check that out. I will be doing a review of it, but if you want to actually see the movie live with me, then be sure to just go check that out. Link is down in the description, and just be sure to do that. I was gonna do it on Twitch, but Twitch is dumb and apparently doesn't let you watch movies that you need to rent on the service on Amazon Prime. So yeah, I'm just going to be watching it in Discord now because that's how that's going to work now. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!